Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service. Welcome to this special program featuring the life of Sir Probyn Inniss. I am Lesroy Williams, your host. I have on the panel Reverend Mark Christmas, pastor of Wesley Methodist Church, where Sir Probyn played a committed role. Mrs. Viola Jacobs, a dear friend of Sir Probyn, who knew him from his childhood years. His Excellency, Ambassador Sam Conda, a mentee of Sir Probyn, and Mr. Ken Martin, a colleague and friend, especially at the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park Society. A warm welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir Probyn Inniss, MBE, lives on in the many valuable memories that people have of him. In his play, As You Like It, Shakespeare said, "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and entrances. And one man or woman in his time plays many parts." Sir Probyn played many parts in his lifetime. He was a gentleman, a decent human being, a dedicated public servant, a man with a deep and abiding faith in God, a historian of note, a scholarly lawyer, a faithful husband and father, a former governor, and this list is not exhaustive. He made his grand entrance on the world stage on November 18th, 1936, and his peaceful exit on March 12th, 2017. He was 80. The world was not the same with him, and the world will not be the same without him. He made a powerful impact, yet in an unassuming way. Today we are going to hold a lively discussion on the legacy of Sir Probyn Inniss. I want to start the ball rolling by asking Mrs. Jacobs, who has been a dear friend of Sir Probyn since his childhood years. You have known Sir Probyn since his childhood days. You have basically chronicled his life. Who do you know Sir Probyn to be?
Well, Sir Probyn, I met more than 5 decades ago. First, I didn't even know his name. There was a boy, a young man, on a bicycle, whom I passed most mornings, hurrying down to Girls' High School while he was coming from Challengers to leave his lunch somewhere near to where I lived, because I lived at St. Johnson's, and he was going to eat his lunch there. That's how you did it in those days. And he was going to go across to the grammar school, which was then at Hainsmith, where now you find William Connors School. So we didn't stop to talk, and in fact, I'm not supposed to talk to boys. So we say hello and pass. And that went on for a while until I got to sixth form. Because of course he went to grammar school, I went to girls' high school, and never the twain shall meet. Until you get to sixth form, and the girls who do well in exams go on to grammar school, and then we keep company a little bit with the boys. It was strange those days. We had a separate room for girls, a separate room for boys, but we met for classes. But even at break time, you couldn't stay together. But I met Sir Probyn. He was then just Probyn. And he was in the 6A. For the older ones, they know about Cambridge School Certificate, ordinary level and A level. But when I did it, it was school certificate and higher school certificate. So you see how long ago that was. And he was doing higher school in year 2, and I was doing it in year 1. By that time now we could talk. I suppose we're old enough for boy to meet girl. And even at that stage, he was a little different to the other boys, because he was always so serious, so quiet, so studious. Sometimes they teased him. There was a little joke which I won't tell you about now, but even if the boys teased him, he would smile. He would go on and do what he was doing. Never knew him to be angry. All these years I have known him, and I don't want to exactly tell you to work out my birth date, but as I said, it was well over 5 decades ago. And I've never in all this time known him to be angry. May have been angry, but he was not showing that. He was pleasant, well-mannered, very polite, a perfect gentleman. He left school and went to teach, and later I left school. But by the time I went to teach, and mind you now I was teaching at a girls' school, and he was teaching at the grammar school. But he soon went off to study law in England. No, I have my facts wrong there. He didn't go off to study law in England. He went off to UE, the University of the West Indies, because that's where you go first. I went 2 years after him and met him there. And then I got to know him really well, because at that level you are allowed to communicate freely. And I remember so well, I went and was staying in Mary Seacole Hall, and he was staying at Chancellor. And he came across one evening and asked for me at the Porter's Lodge, and I went, to welcome me to UE and to tell me what goes on there. And that was very important. It isn't so important now, because you know people who have been, and you talk to them and you know what's going to go on. But believe me, I was lost. I so wanted to come back home, because you were leaving home for the first time, going to what then to me was a big country, and you were a little nervous. So it was so good for him to come and tell me a little bit about it. Told me about METSOC. It's like a class meeting you have in the halls. And so that helped prepare me a bit for the life I was going to lead now in a new place. And even at that time, you could sense that he was more mature than most young men his age. He was, when I was quite young, I used to describe him as a young old man, because I thought he didn't behave like all the other young men. He was so mature, so serious, didn't discuss anything frivolous. And so I respected him for that, and enjoyed his company from time to time. after UWI, after I graduated and came home, he went off to do law and then came back and joined the civil service. And then I encountered him too, because as a teacher, you're a civil servant. And so he was at one time in charge of establishments, and so I had to go to him from time to time. And on one occasion I went to him and said to him, I wanted a transfer to Nevis. What did he think of it? Because I respected his opinion. And the real reason was that I thought I was growing up a bit and I needed to leave home, to be quite honest. That was the real reason I wanted to go to Nevis. And when I had explained to him, you know, he didn't advise it. And he told me why. And I didn't go. So that's why I suppose I never ended up teaching in Nevis. But I respected his opinion, and he didn't just tell you no, he would give you some explanation. And so that helped me to chart my career. Now, there's so much, but later on, we would meet, have discussions from time to time about the nature of things, and we would always agonize as we got older about the attitude and the lifestyle and the lack of love of learning amongst young people. But he always was so positive. We would agonize about it, and then he would always say, then, but we have to do our best. We have to help them. And I have read his books, and in the book, Methodism in St. Kitts, 1787 to 2006, right at the last page, he ends with a commitment, a call for commitment. And the quotation is, and I wrote it because my brain is getting old and I may not remember. It says, I am only one, but I am one. I can't do everything, but I can do something. What I can do, I ought to do. And what I ought to do, by the grace of God, I will do. And I checked on the quotation because he didn't record in the book where he got it from. And it is an old pastor, I think he was Dr. Edward Everett Hale, who was a very prominent missionary in those days, a long time ago. I didn't check his years, but you know, it isn't a 20th century minister. But he said those words, and I want to think that Sir Probyn lived by this. I am only one person. I will do what I can by the grace of God. And as I mentioned the grace of God, let me say that there are three things about him that impressed me. His deep and abiding faith in God. He believed, and therefore he had to do. He was a good Methodist, but that was not so important as living the life that Christ called him to live. He also had a love of country. Not the kind where you boast about this and boast about that, but the kind of country above self attitude, where he would do anything to further the development of our country. And the third thing that impressed me was his intense love of knowledge. I told you he used to be always reading in class and so on. He continued that. And I don't know how he managed it. But if you read his books and you look at the bibliography at the back, you will wonder, because today we can get on the computer, and the internet will help us out quite a bit. But let me tell you that when we were growing up, going to school, there was not even a radio station. Ziz hadn't started yet. And we had a small public library. It was quite inadequate. And we didn't have the facilities that are available now. So he didn't have that kind of help. So I don't know how he managed, but by the grace of God, as he said, he managed to read all these books and do the research necessary to publish his books. And for a man who had a career apart from writing, I really don't know how he managed it, but he did. And I am so happy that he did, because he is now leaving behind books which we need, because there are no other books like those. To write about Bastille, he had to go to the archives and talk to so many people and read so many books. But how else would we know about historic Bastille? Somebody has to do it. And I go back, I am only one, but he had to do this. Witherbound St. Kitts, I think I have the name right. Yes. That's also a book which needed to be written. And when he writes, he is frank and honest, unapologetic, but not insensitive and not negative, so that you're going to get a picture, like it or don't like it. This is what it is, and he will give you the necessary facts. There's so much I can say. I think I should stop, because there are 4 of us.
Well, perhaps the challenge is yours to write his biography.
Yes.
No.
What do you think?
I don't accept that challenge, simply because so many people have told me to write, not that. But a number of things people say, you must write and write. And I have a lot of material, some in my head, some on paper, but it's my nature. I am restless soul. I cannot sit for hours to write. I am no Probyn. I have to be up and doing. And so I don't think I'm going to accept your challenge. I'm not saying it will never happen if the Lord spares me long enough. I don't know what I will write, but I don't think I'll write his biography. Okay. I have other things that I would like to write. Sure. Very interesting things. But believe me, the writing thing is difficult.
Okay. Now, Reverend Christmas, I know that one of the books that Sir Probyn has written is Methodism in St. Kitts. I am told that he had a special love for God and a deep commitment to his church. Now, you have been his pastor. I also understand that he was a lay preacher and that his sermons were very deep. I have never heard them, but people have told me that. What can you say about Sir Probyn?
Sir Probyn, where do I begin? I can ask the question, can any good thing come out of
challenges?
Which I asked him this morning while I was there. And of course they could proudly say yes. Sir Probyn came out from Challenges Methodist, and he did them justly proud. So we could gather that his faith was grounded in Challenges Methodist, and he took it very seriously throughout his life. He played a very ardent role, very vital role, pivotal in the church, serving in different capacities, from young come right up. He captained the boys brigade attached to the Challenges Methodist Church. He was the president of the Island Council for a number of years. As you said, he was an accredited local preacher. He served for almost 40 years as a member of the board for the Epworth Maricilia Memorial Junior School up to his death. He served as a vice president of the Methodist Church in the Caribbean and the Americas. It is the highest office that a lay person can serve within the Methodist Church, and so for him to serve at that level says something. It's a 2-year term, and so he served from 91 to 93. I think under his tenure, he had a turbulent time in the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos Islands, and he oversaw that process. And then in 2005, he became a member of the MCCA Trust Corporation. That's the corporation that deals with our properties across the connection, across the region. And he was there until his death. In fact, they were due to meet next month in Antigua, as they meet every year annually. Around that time, he was due to be there when we observe our preachers, for we have what we call Preachers' Lord's Day, and pay special attention to those who are part of John Wesley's noble band of preachers. And he was to take the service at Ebenezer Methodist Church on that Sunday. Unfortunately, that was not to be. And so he will be sorely missed. He will be sorely missed. And we could only pray that they will have someone to take up where he is. There will never be another Sir Probyn. And so we do not expect that, but we do know that he was very instrumental within the church.
Good. Now, His Excellency Ambassador Conde, in a recent interview, I think it was on Win FM, you mentioned that Sir Probyn has been a mentor to you. You spoke very highly of his public service, the public service that he gave to this country. What are some of the ways that you have been mentored by Sir Probyn, and what is your evaluation of his public service?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Let me first of all greet the listening and viewing audience, and to say how honored I am to be part of this distinguished panel of Sir Ken Martin, Lady Viola Jacobs, and the Most Reverend Merry Christmas. To pay tribute to one of our most outstanding and illustrious sons, Sir Probyn Inniss. I am honored to be invited to do so because I don't know him in the intimate way that Lady Viola spoke of him from childhood and so on. I didn't know him the way that Mark knows him as his spiritual leader and all of that. And neither would I ever be able to know him as well as Sir Ken. So what I know is what everybody knows, his public service. And so that is really special to me that I could be asked to speak on this panel, to say what everybody knows. And so I wish to proffer some personal reflections of the public service to our country of one of our most patriotic sons, Sir Probyn Inniss. My point of departure is to remind us all of the lament of Sir Oliver Cromwell, who at his death in September 1658 lamented, "I wish I had served my God as well as I serve my king and country. Sir Probyn had no such lament. He served his God well. In fact, I was told by Lady Inniss that he was reciting the chorus, the well-known chorus of that well-known hymn. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That hymn is composed from the best known of the Psalms, the 23rd Psalm. The first stanza reads, "A pilgrim was I, and a wandering. In the cold night of sin I did roam. When Jesus, the kind shepherd, found me, and now I am on my way home." And the last stanza, "When I walk through the dark, lonely valley, my Savior will walk with me there, and safely his great hand will lead me to the mansion he's gone to prepare." Sir Probyn served his people and his country in several positions, moving from teacher to governor. Between the noble profession of teaching and the highest office in the land of governor, he served as permanent secretary, as Mr. Jacobs just said, cabinet secretary, chief secretary, and latterly as a lawyer. At all times he discharged his duties to the honor and glory of God and in the interests of the people. This was most evident when he served as governor of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. St. Kitts, Nevis and Anguilla, that it was that time, from 1975 to 1980. And governor of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis between 1980 and 1981. In a very real sense, Sir Probyn brought the office of governor from a colonial orientation and made it relevant, not only the office of governor, but government house, made it relevant to the hopes and aspirations of a former colony and a former colonized people seeking their liberation and independence. When Sir Probyn demitted office prematurely in 1981, it was as a result of his commitment, his firm commitment and determination to preserve the principles and values of good governance and the rule of law. It was because of that commitment to the principles of good governance and the rule of law why he was prematurely demitted office. 35 years later, since he has demitted office, Sir Probyn remained in the vanguard, writing and speaking widely, any occasion for any group in the society, any organization, the service organizations, the NGOs, government, you name it. In fact, Lady Jacobs has here on display a whole range of the books he has written, which I've had the opportunity to read many of them. Not the one on Methodism yet, but I'll probably come around to reading that as well. But Witherbone, St. Kitts Nevis, Beautiful Bastion, you name it. And so he has been in the vanguard of writing and speaking on the values and principles of democracy. A major part of Sir Probyn's advocacy over the past 35 years has been the education and sensitization of our people, of our historical and cultural heritage. He always made sure that people understood that, what it meant, where we came from, where we are as a people, in terms of our historical development, our constitutional development and arrangement, and like he said in Witherbone, Sinkers and Nevis, where we need to go, where we want to go, where we should be going, charting a new course. He had a vision for the people of the country, and so Sir Probyn spent the last 35 years of his life doing that, and really at great sacrifice, because there was nothing, no monetary benefits in this. The lectures were free, and I'm sure that we have all made the note that I said. He has been and not was, because it is my view that the impact and influence that Sir Probyn has made on the lives and our way of life and living of Kittitians and Nevisians, and maybe to extend the wider Caribbean region, will live on long after his remains have been interred. And so I'm saying that his impact and influence has been tremendous. I am also of the considered view that the best way we could honor the memory of Sir Probyn, and the greatest tribute we could pay to his life and to his work, is to make sure that we continue to promote the values and principles that he espoused during his lifetime, and to make sure that generations yet unborn are aware of the work and contribution that he has made. Because if we are to advance as a people, as a nation, this is what has to happen. Like the thesis advance in Roots, Alex Hazley Roots, that there are three kinds of persons: those who are here before us, those who are here now, and those to come. And so those who have passed on, have made a contribution, we have obligation to make our contribution and to pass it on better than we have inherited it. And so that is all part of the process, and we must continue the process, take it up from where Sir Probyn left it, and to take it forward.
If I had to ask you to use 3 words to describe Sir Probyn, what would they be?
The first thing comes to mind is his humility. Sir Probyn was an extremely humble man. And well, his wisdom, his knowledge, and I would say the easiness or the accessibility in which you're able to get things.
So humility, his knowledge, and his accessibility. Good. Okay, before I move on to Mr. Ken Martin, we save the best for last. I wanted to mention some facts about Sir Probyn that I learned. Is that in 1975, Sir Probyn succeeded Sir Milton Allen and was appointed governor of the Associated State of St. Kitts or St. Christopher, Nevis and Anguilla, and he was the youngest person to become governor at the age of 39 years old.
38, correct.
Yeah, 38 actually. And in 1976, he was knighted. on the, he was on the New Year's honors in 1976. And he actually endured 3 changes in government. Sir Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw, Sir Paul Southwell, Limor, and Dr. the Right Honorable and Right Excellent Sir Kenneth Simmons. That is quite a heap, quite a life. So we move on to Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Brother Lesroy. It's glad to be here among this distinguished panel.
Yes.
To pay tribute to my president.
And Sir Probyn had a deep love for the history of St. Kitts and Nevis, as we can see in his book, the Historic Bastille and other books. He has given many lectures and so on the history of St. Kitts, something that he loves passionately. And he passionately guarded the preservation, the conservation of our history. You have worked with him.
Indeed.
You have been his colleague. What account can you give of Sir Probyn?
Oh, sterling account. But first, let me say that I picked up association with Sir Probyn at the level of the civil service when he was Chief Establishment Officer, later transposed to PS Establishment. And in a lighter moment, he reminded me of something in the grammar school, that when the cricket team became victorious in 1949, most of the boys had to form a line and shake our hands. Now, I have absolutely no recollection of that. But Colin Myler, my friend, says, yes, you were in, Sir Probyn was there when you were in the higher forms. In those days, the lower school could not associate with the upper school. We had to call it sir in some instances.
That's right.
So, but yes, Sir Probyn, to my mind, made a tremendous contribution to Brimstone Hill. And with his passing on Sunday, 12th March 2017, a memorable day, I should say, the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park Society lost its president, and the country lost one of its illustrious sons, and the country lost one of its most eminent historians. It was a terribly hard blow to us, but we will endure. So Probyn gave very freely, extremely freely, of his time and his talent and his experience to the country he loved, and as well as the society. And it is very difficult for me to appreciate that we no longer have him with us to call our meetings to order, because at meetings the general manager will sit on his right, I sit on his left as well, and they say you sit on his left because you're nearest to his historical heart. Fast forward, I think that so Probyn's association with Brimstone Hill started way back in the founding of the Society for the Restoration of Brimstone Hill in 1965. And it was established in that year on the initiative of Colonel Howard, the then administrator, the very famous and gallant Henry Anthony Camilo Howard, administrator. And he got with him, he had with him some members of the local planter association, mercantile people, Colonel Walwyn, Lloyd Matheson, and a couple others. They formed a group, the society, to clean up, they say, and selectively restore the great fortress of Brimstone Hill as a showpiece, but principally for the anticipated visit of Her Majesty the Queen and Duke of Edinburgh later that 1966. And that view was supported by by the right excellent late Sir Robert Bradshaw, who was a member of that first Council of Management, founding fathers then, as it were. Mr. Inniss was then a civil servant at the government headquarters, and he had been assigned to work on the program for the royal visit. And in his words, he said, I quote, "Somebody had the idea that in those roles it would be appropriate for him to be appointed secretary to the new organization, that is secretary to the Society for the Restoration of Brimstone Hill." He, however, did not take up that appointment immediately, for another 2 years, I believe, but then served subsequently for 2 years afterwards. At Brimstone Hill, Sir Probyn had a checkered career. Mr. Morton succeeded him. He left for obvious reasons. He had pressure of work and so on. So Mr. Edmund Morton succeeded him. Send greetings to Mr. Edmund Morton, OBE, my friend. And I succeeded Mr. Morton in 1972, I think. Yes, 72. The succession plan is a very interesting story, which we won't go to. Time will not permit us to Yes. Inniss, however, continued to have a very maintain a lively interest in the society and kept up his membership. If I may fast forward his involvement, Sir Probyn in 2001 was appointed by government as one of its 2 representatives to sit on the Council of Management of the association, the society, I beg your pardon. The other nominee being Dr. Joseph Halliday, OBE. We send Brother Halliday greetings and wish him well at this stage. And I believe that it was from that position on the council, and I know that as honorary secretary, I had the opportunity to more fully observe and appreciate the enormous capacity of Sir Probyn for the disciplines of history and heritage. Restoration was one of his fortes. When therefore the office of Vice President became vacant on the retirement of Mr. Lindsay Cogan, the obvious nomination for the post was, of course, Sir Probyn. And at the annual general meeting of 2004, he was elected Vice President. The serving president was then Sir Cecil Jacobs of blessed memory. After having served 5 3-year terms as president, Sir Cecil quietly retired. Whereupon Sir Probyn was again unanimously elected, but this time to the office of president, and that was in year 2005, and remained in that exalted station up to the time of his passing a week ago. Later this year, he would have celebrated his 4th 3-year term as president. Cecil Jacobs served 15. The redoubtable Lloyd Matheson, father of Brimstone, as we say, occupied the chair of president for over 20 years. Earlier this year, it was Sir Probyn's honor to lead the society's deputation, marking the occasion of the visit of Prince Harry to Brimstone Hill. And although the visit was largely orchestrated by the Ministry of Youth and Employment, Sir Probyn kept a lively interest in that program through his officers on the hill and his general manager, to see that that hill was in pristine form for the arrival of the king.
Of the prince.
And as the prince remarked, it was in spit and polish form, a military connotation. Sir Probyn, an orderly person, it's an orderly mind. Orderly person, with an orderly mind. Ever a person interested in youth empowerment, and mainly through history, it was largely through Sir Probyn's efforts, ably supported by the then General Manager Larry Harmony. I send you my greetings, Larry, and others, that History and Heritage Week, now expanded to an entire month during February, March, was inaugurated. And that he did not get that thing lightly, because Larry sent me a note saying that when History and Heritage Week reminded me, when Sir Probyn first mooted the idea of the society organizing an annual week of activities, it did not fly with him. But Sir Probyn was intensely interested in knowledge and interest of young people, and that the rootlessness and deteriorating values among them, particularly the youth, we had to address. And so when he became president, he flung that thing at the council again, and it went. And as Larry would say, it found traction. You know. He assembled a committee and went full speed with this program. The first month was held in February 2005, and every year since, activities included the primary school quiz, a social evening for seniors, a heritage hike, radio and television discussions, a public lecture, among others. Out of the abundance of respect he held for our very illustrious second president, Lloyd Matheson, Sir Probyn headed what is known as the Matheson Trust, an organization set up within the jurisdiction of the society, from which grants are drawn to assist young people in their historical and literary pursuits. And this is borne out by Sir Probyn in his eulogy delivered at the funeral service of D. Lloyd Matheson, CBE. Quote, "It was Matheson's mission to get to know and appreciate the history of the island, this being an essential prerequisite to changing it for the better and in the future." A very generous statement. In his tribute to Sir Cecil Jacobs, Sir Probyn said, "It is remarkable, Brother Christmas, I should say, how his life seemed to embody one of John Wesley's famous mottos." Very quickly. Yes. Oh dear. One of John Wesley's very famous mottos: "Do all you can. Do all the good you can." You're a Methodist boy, no? Yes. "By all the means you can. In all the ways you can. In all the places you can, sir. At all the times you can. To all the people you can. As long as ever you can." He said that at Sir Cecil's tribute at his funeral, ending which, "Such is the measure of the man to whom we say today a fond and sad farewell." Yes. And so we say this evening and forever, such also is the measure of Sir Probyn Inniss.
Well, thank you so much, Sir.
Thank you, sir.
Ken Martin.
Thank you.
I remember that Ambassador knighted you a while ago.
Yes, indeed.
We are listening to a live panel discussion with 4 panelists: Reverend Mark Christmas of the Methodist Church, Mr. Ken Martin of the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park Society, Mrs. Viola Jacobs, who has had, from what I understand, over 30 years as an educator.
Yes.
Deputy principal at the Bastia High School and principal at the junior high school, and who majored in the modern languages: French,
Latin,
Latin.
That's not
Well,
modern.
that's not modern. Latin is outdated. It's no longer spoken. And we have His Excellency Sam Conde, who is presently the permanent representative to United Nations. And he has been long-standing, has had a long-standing career in politics. We are going to take a break, and when we come back, we are going to have questions from you. Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service. We welcome you back to this live discussion where we are speaking about the legacy of Sir Probyn Inniss. We are going to take your calls, but before we do that, I want to make some announcements. There will be public viewing of Sir Probyn Inniss's body at Government House from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Thursday, March 23rd. It's a public viewing, so it means then that everybody who wants to view the body, you have an opportunity to do so from 10 to 2 p.m. on Thursday, the 23rd of March. Then there's a public signing of the Book of Condolences at Government Headquarters from Wednesday, 22nd March, at 8 o'clock in the morning to Thursday, 23rd of March at 12 p.m., midday. The funeral of Sir Probyn Inniss will be at 2:30 p.m. at Wesley Methodist Church at Seaton Street. And Thursday, the 23rd of March, is declared a National Day of Mourning, and it is also a half day. It's a public half day, half holiday. Okay, so we are going to welcome your calls. The number to call is 466-2666. That's 466-2666. You can call in and share your memories of Sir Probyn. Give your tribute in whatever form that you want to. You can sing.
Good night.
Good night.
Yes, good night to all the panelists. Good night, Viola. To Sylvine.
Oh.
Oh, yes, my former co-worker. Maths teacher didn't even know she did languages. She taught mathematics at Bastia High. Now, I want to send my condolences to the family of Sir Probyn. Now, I noticed nobody mentioned his family life. So could somebody there tell me what impact did his wife and maybe children have on his accomplishments?
Well, I think that the fittest person to speak about that is Mrs. Jacobs.
That's why I shout out. Viola, I'm not going to get away. I mean, he was a married man, so his wife must have had some kind of impact. Because all the discussions I heard, they're rather sterile, you know? Very sterile. The woman has been left out.
No, we said he was. We said
don't think I heard what she was there when he died.
All right, Sylvie.
We did say in the beginning. We did say in the beginning.
What impact, if any, did his wife and family have on his accomplishments, his demeanor, everything? That is my question. Thank you.
I think she was a source of great help in terms of, maybe not she alone, but mainly I think she did all that typing, because writing these books And because before you had a computer, she, I know, was a qualified secretary, so I know she did a lot of typing. And if you read the books, if you look in the books, he does acknowledge her help. Other people too, but she and the children, I think, helped. I think she made a lot of sacrifices so that he could pursue his ambitions, so that he could do his reading and so on. I mentioned facetiously to somebody the other day, I would not have liked to be his wife.
I will stop you there. We have a phone call. Good evening, caller.
Pleasant good evening to everyone. I'd like to extend my sympathy to the family of Sir Probyn. I came across Sir Probyn about 2000 at the University Center, where he was making a speech along with Mr. Washington Archibald about the Buckley's uprising. And from since that, every year, Sam Condor and Sir Probyn and Mr. Archibald would make it their business to be attending the ceremony at Buckley's estate. And he will be surely missed from this year onward. I always had the opportunity to video, and for some reason this year I didn't get to video, so this year I missed out, and this was the final year. So he will be surely missed. He always took the time out and make himself present. As long as he is present in the Federation, he walked with King and Princess, but he never lose his common touch. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, caller. Hello, good evening.
Radio on.
I'm on the phone.
Yes, you are on the phone. We're hearing you.
Hello?
Hello,
Good evening.
good evening.
Oh, yes. Now I know. Yes.
Turn your radio down.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, are you hearing me now?
Yes, we are.
Yes. Good evening to your distinguished panel, Mr. Lesroy Williams. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes. And I'm referring to Reverend Mark Christmas, Ambassador Sam Condor, Lady Viola Jacobs, and Mr. Ken Martin. And I would also say good evening to listeners at home and abroad. I would like to pay tribute to my friend and villager, Sir Probyn Inniss. Sir Probyn Inniss was born in Challengers Village on the beautiful island of St. Kitts. And I, Wilfred Wells of Challengers Village, like Sir Probyn, was born in the village of Challengers. And I am very pleased to be afforded this opportunity to give a tribute to my friend, Sir Probyn. He was also known as His Excellency the Governor General of St. Kitts, Nevis, and Anguilla.
You mean the governor?
Yeah, the Governor General. Oh, the Governor.
The governor.
Yes, okay. Of St. Kitts, Nevis, and Anguilla, when our country was an associated state under Great Britain. Now, Sir Probyn was born on the 12th of November 1936, and I was born on the 8th of November 1937. We were never rivals, but in sports, Sir Probyn loved bicycle riding, and I loved cricket and football. As a villager and friend of Sir Probyn and other members of his family, when I heard of his passing, it was sad news for me.
However, because I know of some of the main virtues of his life that caused him to excel over the years, I then began to feel confident at his passing that our Lord and the Savior Jesus Christ would be pleased to welcome him home to glory. And so with that belief, I was comforted. More of what I know of Sir Probyn. Early in his life, he, like many of us, embraced Christianity as a virtue and as the guiding principle to live by. I believe that we as a people have over the years accepted the fact that the church brought to our land the noble heritage called Christianity many years ago. And it has remained with us as something that we should embrace and appreciate always. Importantly for us, Christianity speaks to our relationship with God Almighty, our Heavenly Father, maker of heaven and earth, and also the relationship with his Son, Jesus Christ, who is our Lord and Savior.
Okay. He said, sure, go ahead, Ambassador.
Mr. Moderator, I would like, if with your permission,
sure, go right ahead.
just go back a little bit to Mrs. Henry's
to question
about the family, because
Yes.
I think people underestimate and undervalue the importance of your spouse and your family in the support they give in public life.
Sure. That's right.
And as someone who has held public life for over an extended period, I could tell you that, you know, the value of that support. And especially at difficult times. And during my brief presentation, I mentioned that Sir Probyn prematurely demitted office.
Yes.
That was a difficult time in his life. And so I know that
she would have been there to support him.
Yeah, and so that quiet support and assistance and encouragement. Yes. You know, when you're away from the crowd and in the quiet moments, that quiet support and assistance that you get, it is you can't underestimate the value and the contribution. At that time, I may say that was 31 years ago. His children were very young, Angelo. And again, Angela has been a kind of protege of her father. I mean, she studied law like him and so on, and you know, really went into the public service and so on, just like him. And so I know it is that sort of encouragement and support that we're able to take him, and really to allow him to contribute so much to society, to the country, to all of us. I mean, you can't do that. You can't give as much as he gave and do all the things he did without that kind of family and support. Not only his immediate family, but his extended family as well.
We have some phone calls.
I'm sorry.
But you're quite correct.
I'm sorry.
Support and so on. Good evening, caller.
Hi, Mr. Williams.
Yes. Good evening.
I would like to add 4 words instead of 3.
Yes.
Ethical.
Go ahead.
Gentleman. And a gentleman. Good night, Mr. Williams. I seen you in church today.
Yes. Is this Mrs. Kerritt?
You shut up. You have to call my name.
I want everybody to know it's you.
Oh, he was a lovely man. He was a lovely man. As I said, ethical, professional, and he was a gentleman.
Yes.
Thank you, darling.
Thank you.
And thank your panel for all the lovely things they've spoken about him. And tell Mr. Martin I say he was a 4-H. Bye.
Bye. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes.
to the eminent panelists.
Good evening.
Good evening, His Excellency.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Sir Ken.
Peace and love, sir.
Good evening, Lady Viola. And good evening to my eminent Methodist Superintendent.
Good evening.
Yes, my first interaction with Sir Probyn as a youngster in the Methodist Church when he was a local preacher. And from that, I have always admired the man, because in my view, he was a great man, and yet still so much humility despite his accolades. And then I had the opportunity when I joined the Brimson Hill Society some years back to get to closer interact with him. And then when I became principal of Bruntywells, I reached out to him to sponsor the first spelling bee at the school. And he right away, he said, yes, I will. And so at present, the spelling bee at Bruntywells is named after himself and Lady Inniss. So I am hoping that, that will be continued in his memory. And finally, as a present member of the Brimson Hill Society Council, interacting with him, I realized what a man. And his input would leave an indelible mark on St. Kitts Nevis and all who are followers of history. And not just history, but church members in the Methodist circle. Sir Probyn was a giant of a man. So on behalf of the Wilshire's family, I extend our deepest condolences to Lady Inniss and the family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
I'm a challenger's man, and I started to talk about, well, let me say firstly, the family is a tightly knitted family. That goes there and without. I know what I'm saying. But I only called to tell Mrs. Jacob that I don't want you remember that he went back to Jamaica to do a diploma in public service administration.
Yes.
Yes. I know what I'm saying because I'm relative. I'm relative to them. So, but apart from that, I want to extend my condolences to the entire family from my family, because my family is a big link-up family with them and all of that too. So, and on behalf of the people of Challengers. Well, I got so much I could say, but I can't do it. I can't do it tonight.
Okay.
I'll be there another time.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you for your
I'm
contribution.
glad that you are paying the tribute in that kind of way.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great night.
You too.
That's right. He did too.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to say, really, I don't know how much people understand how much Sir Probyn loved his country.
Yes.
I mean, he did this not for any fame or any glory. I mean, I've had the honor, like I said, on another occasion, to interact with him personally. In fact, the last meeting I had with him, which was Saturday,
Yes.
before he died on, Dwyer and myself spoke to him for over an hour. And basically, his commitment and conviction was undiminished. I mean, he was saying the same thing to me that he said 28 years ago when I got into office and was seeking his advice and his support and assistance. He basically was saying, speaking about, lamenting the fact that, the lack of involvement of young people and the misfortune and the wastage of the lives of young people and so on. And he was saying basically, he said that, you guys have to make sure that you continue. His was always a life of commitment and work to the development of his country. I mean, on his bed, sick bed, it really didn't seem to me that we're going to lose him anytime so soon. And he was saying that all of us, have to continue to recommit to the development and the advancement of our people. Do not let up. I mean, it was amazing. every conversation, every time you're meeting, it was always what we could do to advance the fortunes and the benefits of our people, the ordinary folks of this country. It was just amazing.
Sure. Good evening, caller.
Hello, good night. I'd like to make my contribution to Mr. Inniss and his family.
Certainly.
Yes, I knew him a very long time. I used to go to his mom's place and his dad's place to buy peanuts. And I noticed he was a really quiet person, for sure. And I see he left a big legacy to be behind you, because listening it, he do a great lot for St. Kitts, a lot. At one time too, I had the opportunity to work with them too, and the family of them is all right to me, and we're gonna miss him badly, because I just wish I sit in and say, oh my, I should have been the time that I could have get some teaching from him, as what Miss Jake was saying, maybe that would have helped me really out right now in life, because when you meet teachers like them, they uplift you, they inspire you, they show you, you really want to be in life, and I think it was a great lot for our country, and I hope his name will always live on. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your contribution.
I want to continue what Mr. Kondo was saying, because I had made a note of it but hadn't said it, that he was always concerned about what legacy we are going to pass on to the young people. Not his. He was thinking about what are we doing so that later on the young people will have that legacy. And it is so important. It seems to me the greatest tribute we can pay to him is to so live and so learn and so encourage and inspire that the next generation, not the next, they call them what? The millennials. The present generation, Generation Y, will have a legacy from Generation X. And to a large extent, maybe I shouldn't say to a large extent, but I am not sure that we are working hard enough at it. And so I think that was a concern of his, because we very often talked of young people. And what are they getting from us that will help them improve country and self? And one thing they need to do, and since I'm getting a chance to say to a lot of people, we need to read. And he was always concerned about that. Young people, older people, we are not a reading people, and that is the main way in which we are going to grow and leave behind. Because when we read, we become inspired, we become impassioned, and we pass on something. You can't pour from an empty cup. So if we do not fill ourselves and grow spiritually as well as in knowledge, we will not have anything to pass on. So I think that's the biggest tribute we could pay to him, to pass on to the next generation.
Something I would like us to think of seriously as well as we think about the legacy of Sir Probyn is, I don't know if it is because his faith in Almighty God, and as well as values. For him, values were important, principles were important. And so I want us to understand that we have to instill in our people, in our,
this generation that as a lecture, I don't know if you were at the lecture, well, not the lecture, but the function on Saturday night, when the central bank governor said, values matter.
Of course.
And faith in God. I think we have to begin to re-educate our
Ambassador,
people and those.
I think the crisis we have today in our society is a crisis of values.
Yes.
It is really
Exactly,
a crisis of values,
exactly.
and I see it so much sometimes.
And Sir Probyn was strong on those things.
Very.
He was strong on values and principles. He was strong on faith.
Disrespect for authority. You see this kind of thing, you see.
Let me throw in a bit here, which from a script from my friend Larry. He's saying that the week of activities for the young people, this was a tremendous concern to Sir Probyn, lack of knowledge and appreciation of the history and heritage of the country. For he felt that there was a serious lack of such knowledge and it resulting in rootlessness, and deteriorating values among citizens, particularly the youth.
Absolutely.
On that note, we're going to take this call. Good evening, caller.
Good evening.
Good evening.
That's why I want to say a pleasant good evening to you, also the esteemed panel there.
Good evening, sir.
Especially the Right Honorable His Excellency Sam Kondo. I too want to extend my sincere condolences to Lady Inniss and her family and to the extended family of Sir Probyn Inniss. As I was earlier saying on another radio station, what a giant of a man. I know him scathingly, I must say, because someone very near to me worked for him at the time of his governorship. And I happen to know him by seeing him walking in the streets of Bastia. I think he was the first governor I've known that would walk every corner of Bastia. You'll see him walk, never drive. I mean, he loved to walk the streets. And he was, to me, an unassuming, gentle giant. And I've always listened to his radio programs whenever he was on, speaking to history or whatever lecture series he would be part of. And during his tenuous governorship, he never missed a beat. He always seems, and when I read his bio today several times, I had to pick up a poem by Desiderata. Don't know if you guys are familiar. I guess so.
Yeah.
With that poem. And to me, that poem speaks exactly to the person that Sir Probyn Inniss was. And I want to say to his family, please find fortitude in Almighty God, because his life was entrenched fully in his faith of Methodism. And I wholly wish that we are for the richer by his passing and what his legacy has left for us as a people of this federation. His writings and his Methodism, his faith in God, that made him such a giant. Because I think when you is indulged with this appetite for Christianity, it takes you to a higher level, which he did for Sir Probyn and his family. And I want to say again, thank his family, Lady Inniss and the rest of his family, for lending us Sir Probyn and the God, which we bless them, and may his passing be a fulfillment in each and every one of us' life. Sam, this is a pleasant good evening to you and the esteemed panelists. May God bless you all.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello?
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 Yes, we're hearing you.
Oh, yes, good evening.
Good evening.
I am Landon Lewis from Pages Swanson Gateway, Methodist Church. I'd like to pay transcription to Sir Inniss. I interact with Sir Inniss back when he was working in the establishment, back then at Blakely Hotel, where he used to have to, where he would come over and make suggestions whenever they have special occasion. And yes, where I met him first, and then as my lay pastor in the Methodist Church, and indeed, he was a man of integrity, he was a man of history, he was a man firm to his word, he had believed in his God. We always embraced him whenever he comes to Stage Swanston, and we sometimes said to him, you stay too long, we missed you. Sorry that we can't have you more often. And to his dear wife, she also was working in the establishment. And these two persons work hand in hand, and I know that she was a sore supporter to him in his character, in his faith in God, and in the family life. And so, we're all going to miss him. It was sad when we hear the news. And so, we have to carry on and give God thanks for the life of him and the love of his country. So, this is my contribution to a great man, a man of God, a man of his country, a man of integrity, a man of history, and may his soul rest in eternal peace.
Good evening, caller.
Hey, good evening. Good evening to everyone. I would just like to pay my respects to Sir Probyn and extend condolences to his family. My first recollection of Sir Probyn occurred when I was in Basque Boys School, probably at the age of 8 to 10. As well as when I was in the Cub Scouts around that same time. On both occasions, Sir Probyn came and he spoke to the school, and then he spoke to a gathering of the Cub Scouts in the park. And on both occasions, he explained to us as 10 and 9-year-olds what it meant to have a duty to God and to our country, what it meant to be a citizen, what is our responsibility, and those things stick with young people, and it has stuck with me all this time. So my respects and condolences to the family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. If I am to lay part of my friend Sylvine's concerns about the family, I have it scripted here that we are to thank Lady Inniss and family for sharing Sir Probyn's life with us at Brimstone Hill National Fortress Park, and to invoke God's blessing upon her in this difficult time. Scripted.
As Sir Probyn's pastor, that would have been short because I came in September
that is
of
the
last
Wesley.
year to St. Kitts.
To St. Kitts.
He was actually a member of St. Johnson Methodist Church. But I knew Sir Probyn since I was a little boy, simply because his son Probyn was in class with me. We both went to Morris Hillier at the same time. We were in primary school right up to high school. So we have been good and fast friends ever since. We were in Boys Brigade together, and I could remember we would go to their house when they were in Shadwell, and he would jokingly say, "What are you doing? You're going to follow him here?" And then he follows you back, and we go back and forth. And then he will drop us home. So he was like a father figure to us growing up. So I knew him since then. Growing up, always was gentle. I had a good sense of humor, which his wife alluded to on Sunday when I saw her after the passing. And she did say he used to like to clown a lot. But I guess that is part of why they lasted a long time. I think they celebrated 50-something years of marriage. And then I had occasion to work with Marcia at Panelka Foster before going off to study. So I knew the three of them growing up. And so I know that they were always a tight, loving family, kept together. And so they supported one another along the lines. So,
yeah, you know, whenever I saw him and he saw me, he always stopped and chit-chatted.
Right.
And then he was on his journey again, always walking briskly,
right.
walking with a purpose. He walked with purpose. You know, he was not somebody who I know to involve in idle chat. Every time he speaks to you, it's always about some issue. It's always you're left with something.
Right.
You know, it's not about gossip. It's not about melee, as we say like that. And he did introduce his wife to me. I don't know her that well, but when he introduced her to me, when I looked at her and the type of person that she was, I said she was really a lady, just as he was really a gentleman. You know, but you said something though that piqued my interest, and that is you said that he clowned around. But that is in stark contrast, I think, to what Mrs. Jacobs said earlier, that he was always so studious, always so stoic, you know. So she said maybe that was whole.
That was self-science.
Yes. But yeah, good sense of humor.
We have a caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, Mr. Williams.
Good evening.
You and your panel. Thank you for organizing this program. I think it gives the opportunity for the ordinary people to pay their tribute and respect to our late governor. And I would have loved this program to be called The Death of a Governor. Sir Probyn is somebody who I got to know when I was a young teacher many, many moons ago. So I recall distinctly the time that he served as governor. I think that he was an excellent choice for the governorship of our country. He suited that role very well, and I think he carried it with much grace and distinction. So Probyn was very gracious, humble, dignified, patriotic, a man with integrity, and he brought all of those qualities to bear to the office of governor. I remember him as governor giving a number of keynote speeches on the occasion of speech days at secondary schools. And on one occasion, he chronicled what I would call the qualities of the good teacher, of the perfect teacher. And one of those things that stood out to me interestingly is the one that he said, the teacher has to be as persistent as the devil. I'm talking years ago, and this is the only one that actually I can recall. The teacher has to be as persistent as the devil. And persistence is a quality that I think that Sir Probyn portrayed all his life. Persistence, patriotism, and as the panel referred to, you know, the question that he would ask, what are we going to do? When are we going to regroup? How are we going to do something to pass certain values on to our young people? And this is how I'm remembering him, as well as one of my fellow Methodists. I remember him as somebody who is extremely knowledgeable, very knowledgeable. And I'm only hoping that through the books that he has authored, that we would be able to capture some of that knowledge that, sadly, I have to say that has gone to the grave. But I'm sure that some of this would live on in the hearts of and lives of the many persons that Sir Probyn has touched. So I would love to take this opportunity to say to his widow, Lady Inniss, and their children, my deepest condolences. This is William Hodge from Sandy Point.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to say something because I think if we are serious about the legacy of Sir Probyn and what he stood for and building our country, we have to take seriously what Sir Probyn believed in. Mm-hmm. Now, Sir Probyn was an acolyte of Robert Bradshaw. He made no bones about that. He expressed that publicly everywhere.
Just hold a minute. Mm-hmm. There's a caller. Hello, good evening. Hello.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Williams.
Good evening.
And to your panelists. Now I would like to really place and record my deepest sympathy in the passing of Sir Probyn Inniss. Really, this is a loss that the country would take some time to recover. Sir Probyn Inniss to me was a man of vision. One who I could describe as a watchman, watching over the soul of our nation. Over the years, our country came close, or if not, experienced crisis situation. And whether it was a journalist contacting Sir Probyn Inniss to get his view or his opinion, or whether he voluntarily made statement, this statement was based really putting country above self. Mm-hmm. And making really whatever statement into the as unto God, fear of God. And really, although you have quite a number of persons here, his situation was a unique situation because he had that fear of God in him. Mm-hmm. And our country would be poor going forward in these trying times with the loss of Sir Probyn Inniss. To his family, again I extend my sincere and my deepest sympathy.
Okay.
I find that they would find strength going forward with God, who is the God of hope. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, caller. Good evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
Yes.
Good evening.
I'm calling to express condolences to Lady Inniss and the children and to the Methodist congregation. I salute the members of the eminent panel tonight. I met Sir Probyn when I came to this island, and he has always been a source of comfort and encouragement. Like Lady Viola said, he provided me with a friendly ear and the source of great academic discourse. When I needed, and I missed the academic world when I came here and wanted conversation, Sir Probyn provided that source. Recently, Sir Probyn has become an advisor to me on the issues of church land, and I will greatly miss him, and my condolence and prayer to his family and to the Methodist Church. This is on behalf of the Anglican Church, especially the congregations of St. Anne's and St. Thomas in Middle Island. May God bless his soul. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, good evening. There's no call. Okay, we are going to take a break and we will be right back. Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service. Okay, we want to welcome you back to this discussion. We're discussing the life of Sir Probyn Inniss, quite a gentleman, a distinguished scholar, and a great contributor to the development of St. Kitts and Nevis. On my panel, I have the Reverend Mark Christmas, the Honorable Sir Ken Martin.
Whatever you say, sir.
I have Mrs. Viola or Lady Jacobs, and I have the Excellency, His Excellency Sam Conda. And we're having quite a lively discussion here. So I will give them the opportunity, whichever one wants to start first, to continue what they were saying about Sir Probyn.
About the lady first.
The lady first.
How should I put it? I have been so impressed with Sir Probyn all these years. It's difficult to put those final words together to close off this evening. But I did think of Julius Caesar when Shakespeare caused Mark Antony to say, his life was gentle. And these words describe Sir Probyn. His life was gentle. And the elements so mixed in him that nature might stand up and say to all the world, this was a man.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
Yes.
All right. What is scripted here like this, that to our gallant knight and president, Sir Probyn, now residing in the spiritual realm, we say thank you, Sir Probyn, for the massive impact you have made to the history and heritage of this nation. Goodbye, my friend. And in the words of Shakespeare, adapted, fare thee well, Mr. President, and may flights of angels sing thee to thy rest.
Mr. Moderator, I cannot end with any Shakespearean quote like Sir Ken and Lady Viola. But what I would like to end, how I would like to end, is to make an appeal to my countrymen and women that if we are serious about paying tribute to Sir Probyn and honoring his memory and working like him for a better St. Kitts and Nevis, we have to take seriously what Sir Probyn believed in. And one of the values I know Sir Probyn believed in was justice. He lamented the fact that too often we saw too much injustice in our country at all levels. And that was a major debilitating factor in our development and advancement. And so I would like, as a country, as a nation, for us, like Sir Probyn said, not to pay lip service to these things, but to be committed in a real sense to what is right, what is just, what is fair for every man, woman, and child in this country.
I basically, before Reverend Christmas speaks, I wanted to read, there was a press release in which, and the Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, extended his condolences to the family, and I would read from it. He said, I extend my heartfelt condolences to Lady Rosamond Inniss, the wife for some 55 years of His Excellency Sir Probyn Inniss, MBE, and to their 3 children, Mrs. Angela Inniss Hodge, Miss Marcia Inniss, and Probyn E. Inniss Jr., their grandchildren, and other family members. The government and people of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis join with them to mourn the tremendous loss of Sir Probyn Inniss, whose thumbprint will forever be on the annals of history. Sir Probyn rendered distinguished service as a governor, civil servant, heritage proponent, most notably as the long-standing president of the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park Society, historian, lawyer, preacher in the Methodist Church, St. Kitts Circuit, teacher, and writer. Sir Probyn Inniss was a man who made significant contributions to the nation, not for recognition, but for love of country. Sir Probyn was a fitting exemplar of St. Kitts and Nevis's motto, country above self. And that was from the Prime Minister, who made a statement upon the passing of Sir Probyn Inniss. Reverend Christmas.
Thank you. As I look at the life, the legacy of Sir Probyn, he lived out his faith. He was one who recognized that he was in the world, but he was not of the world. And it had to be that way if he was going to be for the world. And so the principles that he stood on meant that he had to stay on them if he was going to make a difference in the world. And so it was not a faith that was a pie in the sky. It was rooted and grounded in what was happening in his beloved country, in his church. And so we find then that he matched as far as possible word with deed. His deeds were nailed to his words. And so we are going to sorely miss him. I had the opportunity to be at his bedside about an hour before he passed on Sunday morning, and one could see down to the very end. He was firm in his faith. He is firm in his faith. He held to it. And in between, he would continue to reaffirm that faith in a God that had been with him from the very beginning and would be with him to the very end. And so may his soul rest in peace, and the family, Lady Inniss, Angela, Marcia, Probyn, the grandchildren, Ambrose, Isaiah, and Benjamin, and the rest of the family. Our prayers are continued with you. We have lost quite a giant of a man. May his soul rest in peace.
Amen. Amen.
Yes, I know that, thank you, Reverend Christmas. I know that Sir Probyn also had a distinguished life and career in law. And his contribution to the legal fraternity, in fact, he had his own law firm, Inniss and Inniss, and so on. And one of my things is that I think that it would have been good if we had on this panel somebody from the legal fraternity to really speak about his distinguished life and career in law. You know, I mean, he was many things.
Yes, so many things.
He was many things. The Bar Association.
I might take up that as a special tribute, I believe.
Right, because I know that when they had the special sitting of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court to open the new courtroom, the Chief Justice, Dame Janice Pereira, paid tribute to him, and the Honorable Attorney General, Vincent Byron, also paid tribute to him. And the Keisha Spence of the Bar Association also paid tribute to him. So in all walks of life, wherever he went, whatever he did, there is one thing that stands out, one thing that I am hearing, country above self. It was never about himself. He was selfless. He was unassuming. He was a man of values and virtues. And he took that down to the end. So I want to thank
That's your lady, you know. That's your lady now.
Lady Viola Jacobs, who spoke so well about Sir Probyn. I know that you laugh and that you show a lot of courage, but deep down you would have missed a dear friend.
Oh, yes, for sure.
And Ambassador Conde, he has made an imprint on your life.
Certainly.
And you have spoke so passionately tonight about that. He's somebody that you will never forget.
Can't.
And Mr. Martin, you will forever remember him for many things, but you spoke of his work with the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park Society and his deep love for the preservation of history,
empowering the youth,
and empowering the young people. And Reverend Christmas, it's not Christmas yet.
Yes. for you.
No, it's okay for me. But you spoke so much about perhaps the greatest thing about him, his faith. And I think that from what I heard, that is what really kept him together. I think it was Hans Kuhn, who was a German theologian. For those of us who are Catholic, we would know that famous theologian Hans Kuhn, who was eventually ostracized by the church because some of his views were very radical in theology. But he said, is a quote, "Why be a Christian?" And the answer was, so that I can be more human. And I think in that lies the humanity of Sir Probyn. A Christian, a man with deep respect for God, respect for himself, and respect for others. And so I want to thank you very much. I want to thank all of you who called in tonight and gave tributes to Sir Probyn Inniss. I want to thank all of you also who listened to this program, and I want to remind you that Sir Probyn's funeral is on Thursday at the Wesley Methodist Church, that is Seaton Street, at 2:30 p.m. But before that, on Thursday, it's a National Day of Mourning, and a half day is declared so that people can attend the funeral and to view the body of Sir Probyn, which would lie in state at the Government House from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And it's public viewing, so everyone can go and view Sir Probyn's body. Also, there will be a book of condolences that will be open to the public at government headquarters from 8 a.m. on the 22nd, that's on Wednesday, and it will be open until Thursday midday. So you can go and you can sign your name in the book of condolences. I want to thank you very much, all of you on my panel, and thank you very much for listening to and viewing today's program. Have a good night. Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service.